Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special episode of the Mac Movie Reviews podcast. I'm your host, Mac. I'm joined here as usual with my co-host, Kristin, aka Miss Flamingo. Say hi to the folks at home, Kristin.
Hey, everybody. We got a special episode for you guys today. A little different. Something that we don't normally do.
Yes, we do. We are joined here by an up-and-coming filmmaker. He has a new film, a new short film. It's called Hit.
Well, no, a feature film. We should make it a feature.
A feature film, I'm sorry, on YouTube, I believe.
No, it is on Amazon Prime right now and potentially on YouTube soon. We're trying to get on more streaming platforms.
Okay, it's on Amazon Prime right now. It's called Hit Record, and it's going to be on YouTube soon. Give it up, everybody, for Ethan Cvitanic.
Woo, Ethan!
Oh, thank you.
Well, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So, tell the audience about yourself, who you are, and what is it that you do?
All right. Okay. So I currently live in Los Angeles because I am trying to become a writer and director. I just finished, a couple months ago, I just finished my first feature film, Hit Record, and it was a couple of years in the making, like 3 years in the making, I'll say, because post-production takes a little bit of time, but it was something that I started a couple of years ago with some of my best friends and my sister. And it was just a really interesting, exciting, fulfilling process. And I really hope to keep going. We shot the movie in Oklahoma. And that was important to me because I grew up in Oklahoma. I lived there and didn't move out to California until I was 18. And so that's I would say home, at least as much as California is now.
Okay. So did you study film? So let's talk about you first before we get into the film. Did you study film? Was this your first ever screenplay that you wrote? Because the film is a mockumentary. I'm going to point that out, Hit Record. So was this something that you wrote over time?
No, I didn't study film. I took a couple writing classes when I took intro and then intermediate screenwriting when I was in community college, actually. And I was like, oh, I really like this. I want to keep going with this. So I wrote 3 or 4 screenplays, and none of them were ones that I could actually make on my own. And my sister, she's an actress, and I was like, what if we did something that we could do together, and sort of just make super low budget on our own in basically Oklahoma, our backyard, and that was sort of the genesis of it all. And then when it came to actually writing this project, we started writing it in January, or in January of the year that we started making it, and then we were filming by July. So it was just a first draft, and we knew that we were gonna improv parts of it, so we just kind of wrote out this is what happens in this scene, and then we would just kind of play with it on the day.
So for our audience, the film is basically about a young girl who's looking to become a pop star and is essentially on the rise, starting her career. It's not always successful, I should say, but where did that idea come from?
I would say it came from, I don't know if you've ever do this. I think we all have this fantasy deep down that we secretly all want to be rock stars, just perform on stage and just be killing it up there. And I think it came from this moment. It was such a humbling moment. I remember actually when I was 12 years old, after seeing High School Musical, I was I had never tried singing. I watched that movie and I was so moved by, seeing people who were not performers learn how to perform. And I was like, oh my God, what if I'm secretly an incredibly amazing singer, et cetera, et cetera. I went into my sister's room and she had this voice, or actually she had one of my parents' old voice recorders that they used because my dad, he dictates for stuff when he's writing. And so I got one of those and I recorded myself singing one of the songs from the from the soundtrack, and I remember playing it back and hearing myself and being like, oh my god, like it's so bad, and it's worse than I could have ever imagined, and like how is this possible? Like the recorder is broken. And then I went back and listened to my dad's voice, and it sounded the same. And I think I was just like so crushed in them. I was like on a high, and then I was so crushed so quickly after. And I always had thought about that. I was like, what a humbling moment, you know. But I took that and I was like, okay, well, what if that was someone's experience, and then they decided, well, I'm gonna go for it anyways, you know. I'm not gonna let my like not perfect voice keep me from being a singer, you know.
Yeah. And going back to like the time, especially like, you know, imagining yourself, like we all wanted to be rock stars at some point. I remember when I was little, and when you said High School Musical, I was like, yes, because I was one of those kids that took the hairbrush and was singing "Breaking Free" till like my lungs could collapse, like, and like I was one of those kids, even with Hannah Montana and stuff like that. I was one of those wannabe pop stars when I was a kid, like playing that stuff with my friends, even. So, how did all that come into like wanting your sister to be involved and making her the star of the film?
Well, we have probably made, you know, I've been like making little movies at home, you know, just with like my family's video camera since I was like 13, and she would always be the star of them, you know. And the girl who plays Dawn, her name's Alex, and she was our next door neighbor, and she would be in them also. And so the three of us had probably done like 20 short films together. And so we just knew each other really well. And there was no question. It was sort of like, I could just be like, okay, remember that one time when we were like met this person? And then, you know, like we have the same references. So it was really easy to just hash things out really quickly in the moment, you know. And, but Suge, actually, she's always acted, sang, danced, all of it. She's like a triple threat, and she's actually a really great singer. But I was like, for this, you're going to have to, that was one of the things we had to do, is we had to kind of practice bad singing to make it, or not bad singing, just not as good singing to make it,
Yeah. There was a lot of inspirations from different other films from what we watched from the film. Were you inspired by like filmmakers like Rob Reiner, who wrote This Is Spinal Tap, and maybe a little bit of the Lonely Island guys who did the pop star film? Were you inspired by those?
I would say my inspirations were, I've seen both of those movies and enjoyed both of them, but the ones that I had thought of the most was probably Waiting for Guffman and Drop Dead Gorgeous. They're two mockumentaries from the 90s, a little bit lesser known, but I loved both of those, and so did Suge and Alex. And so that was, you know, it was something we would always watch them together, and we kind of thought, we were like, okay, well, they look really low budget, you know, they're not like all glitz and glam, so maybe we could kind of do something like that. And I actually like filming it and like what my reference was. I kind of thought, actually, in some weird way, I don't know if this will click or not, but the movie that I thought the most of when I was actually like filming it, because I'm filming it and talking behind the camera, you know, the whole time, and obviously, you know, it's my voice. And I was thinking of like the Blair Witch Project. Because I was thinking about how that movie, like the person holding the camera who's not actually on the screen is kind of directing the audience, and sort of giving, and is a character even if they're not really on screen for very much of it. And I really enjoyed that movie, and I thought what they did was interesting, and I thought, oh, well, like maybe, you know, maybe our movie could kind of do the same in a different way. But yeah, so I would say those, if you haven't seen Drop Dead Gorgeous or Waiting for Guffman, definitely check those out.
I heard of Waiting for Guffman, but I'm not familiar with the other titles, so I'm going to have to add those to my watch list. Same. Mac, what do you got for any questions?
First of all, I got to say that shout out to the Blair Witch. That's kind of a cool inspiration with this type of film. Like, it's kind of cool.
Love Blair Witch.
But I got to ask you this. It's just, what was some of the challenges filming this film? Because when we had Oak on an early episode, his short film was like 30 minutes. You made a feature length like hour and like 16-minute film. So like what were some of the challenges that you faced during like shooting?
Oh yeah, there's always challenges. I would say the biggest one is just pure stamina, like being able to go. We filmed in 20, we had 22 days of filming, and we only had 2 days off in
Oh
there.
wow.
So it was really just like working every single day. And, every day that you're not working, you're still preparing. And I think just the exhaustion. I'd never done anything that was long. I'd done a couple of short films that took 2 days to film. And
Mhm.
and I kind of thought, I was like, oh, well, it'll just be like that. You're kind of tired, and then you're just like, I would say by like week 2, so maybe like day 10, day 11, I was just so tired, and I couldn't believe that we were only like halfway through. So that's just me being like, kind of just tired. And I think everyone was feeling a little bit by like towards the end. I think we were all kind of just like exhausted, because I think we didn't even know, like, you have no idea how something's going to come together when you're making it. I think that we all kind of thought, okay, this could just be some like home video, like weird experiment. And it turned out better, I think, than we all expected. But in the moment, it was kind of like, okay, you want me to do what? Like, I have to stand outside Best Buy, and you're gonna make me do it like 5 times, and so there was, I think sometimes the actors actually were all so game. Michael, Alex, Shug, they were all down to do anything. That was never a difficulty. I think it was just purely logistical of like trying to find a restaurant that would like let us film. Trying
Hmm.
to if an actor dropped out like the day before, like, oh my god, you're like calling everyone, like, do you know a guy who's like between the age of 40 and 50 who like any acting experience, or has just like held the camera, like it was a lot of last minute changes. And I think that's one of the
Yeah.
things I realized. I was like, if I ever make another movie again, like, you got to always have a plan B, because you end up needing to do plan B like 60% of the time.
Yeah, that's something that I totally learned in producing, not just, just a lot of short films. So plan B is always a good way to go. Sometimes I've always felt,
Oh yeah.
And then
but
there's plan C and D and E.
Yeah, and have a plan C, because sometimes plan B is a little unreliable.
yes.
But yeah.
And speaking of which, the film is very hometown based. What was it like bringing your whole community together for this project? Because you filmed at a church to, I think, filming at a local restaurant, and then you filmed at, like, bigger locations like the Best Buy, which was probably like my favorite scene in the film.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I love that scene too. That was actually, that day went so smooth, unbelievably. Like, the cops never came, and like, came, and I was kind of like, oh, thank God, and but basically I think for me that was one of the most exciting parts, was getting to bring, because every single person in the movie is someone that I know, with the exception of like 2 or 3 actors that I just met, like the day of, but pretty much everyone is like a friend or a family member. And it was really cool to be able to put them all in the same movie. It's kind of like my life, in a way, because it's everyone that's important to me. It's everyone that, represents Oklahoma to me. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that I wanted to show them, because I was like, they're so hilarious and kind of like wise in their own ways that maybe you wouldn't just get from a glance. You kind of need to like talk to them for a second. And I was like, oh, I want to show like this side of them, because I don't think there's a lot of movies made in Oklahoma, and there's even fewer movies made about people in Oklahoma. And I was like, okay, well, let me like add my experience to like the canon of Oklahoma representation.
That's awesome.
It really is.
I haven't been to Oklahoma, so very, very small from what I could see, which is nice. And a lot of you can feel the sense of community that shapes it in the film from casting, like you mentioned, a lot of your friends and family, especially Dawn, because like you mentioned earlier, Dawn was, your next door neighbor.
Yeah.
Does she actually study vet? That's what I want to know now.
No, that was something we came up with. We sort of just we thought we're like, okay, well, her character is like so good and she's so sweet, and like what would be like the most wholesome job that like someone could do, and like sort of based off of like the angle of, she's had to watch like pets like struggle in the pools, and so she's like, I just want to help them. I'm so tired of seeing them like drowning in pools. Anyways, she actually works she works for a company that does she went to college and graduated from the University of Oklahoma, and she studied like sort of graphic design, like sort of art and technology. Okay. And she works for a company that does virtual reality now. So she's like very techy and like super smart and like knows way more about like all this stuff than I do. She had the Adobe collection for years before I did.
So what was it like for her to transition into the acting? And also you could probably say that for Shug, your sister. What was it like because is this like her big feature debut too?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely the feature debut for both of them. Alex hadn't really done a ton of, I think she'd done like 1 or 2 school plays, and then we'd done all of our little short films together, but this was her first big project. And I think it was the most probably challenging, because in real life she has this kind of like bigger than life personality. She's very like loud, but like in the best way. And I love her for it. And I was like, okay, well, like we got to kind of tone that down. You got to be a little bit more like soft spoken and like kind of nervous and anxious. And she was like, okay, I get it. And I think she did a pretty good job at that. And I think, she loved the fact that she could just wear the same thing every day, because the clothes became such a whole thing in and of themselves. And she was like, oh my God, like, thank you, Ethan, for just letting me wear this like same t-shirt and pants. And I was like, okay, you're welcome. And I would say for Shug, it was, I think there's, maybe 1 or 2 scenes in the movie that she isn't in. She's pretty much in every scene. So she was just there, super focused and always present. And probably the hardest part was, we filmed certain things, we filmed certain interviews. Like there was a lot of the first cut of the movie is 1 hour and 36 minutes. So, 20 minutes of stuff ends up getting cut. And I think that there's a lot of stuff in between scenes that, just doesn't end up making it in. And so you have to kind of keep track of like where your character is emotionally, because we couldn't film in chronological order either. And I think that was the tricky thing. It was like, we're improvising, we don't know what's going to make it in the final cut, and we're doing this all out of order. So kind of trying to keep track of like that emotional arc. I don't know how she did it, but I think she somehow did, and I was really proud of her for that.
I'm sure you are. So, Mac, what else do you have to offer?
I was gonna say, how does it feel to just see that your film is on Amazon Prime? Because it's just like some filmmakers, they can just like, they just upload it to YouTube, but yours is like on a major streaming service. Like, how does it feel to just hit record on stream now on Amazon Prime?
It's honestly, it's surreal, because I'd been writing for a couple years before doing this movie. I'd been writing for like 3.5 years, and I kind of always thought, oh well, it's up to someone else, some person who works in like an office building in Hollywood somewhere that's going to decide if I get to make a movie and how it turns out, and like sort of my future. And this whole project was like, it was exciting because I really feel like I'm taking my life and my future into my own hands. And it's really from me. I was doing the writing, I did the locations, I did the costumes. Like I had a hand in every single part of this movie. And I really feel like it's completely, like from me, and it came out the way that I wanted. And I think that's definitely the most exciting part, is you feel like you're like, wow, like I made something that's like a true representation of like the kind of movies I want to see, and sort of the experience that I've had in my life. And getting to put that out there on Amazon Prime. I mean, I think it's still weird. I mean, it's been out for a couple, like 3 or 4 months now, and I'm still like, the idea that someone could just click on it and like know about me and my life and stuff is it's so weird. It's so weird.
But it's an exciting weird feeling.
It's a great kind of weird in a good way.
It's like that huge sense of achievement and staple that you can leave on like your resume, or just like self-worth and pride. I mean, that's such a huge honor,
Yeah. And that feeling of getting it to the finish line, and because I think that was sort of at the end, like once you've been editing for like a year, 2 years, you really start to feel like you start to get like so tired of it. You're like, oh my God, is this even funny anymore? Like, is this, I can't even tell, and you're just like, please somebody laugh, or I'm going to just cry. And then you put it out there and it happens, and you're like, oh wow. Like, oh, I'm glad I had faith in myself, and I'm glad I like finished it. And I'm glad that it's up there now, and we'll just see what kind of like life it has. I'm moving on to other projects now, but I always think about it. It's like, I don't know, it's like sending a movie out into the world is like how I kind of imagine like sending a kid off to college. You're like, I think I did a good job. Good luck, Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your favorite scene to shoot? I mean, one of my favorite scenes was, like I mentioned earlier, the Best Buy scene. And I love the music video scene, like the whole aspect of that coming together. And, what's his face? Toby in it. So poor Toby.
His name is Michael Schwartz, and he's one of my best friends, and he was so great about doing all of that, and like literally going on top of a moving car. I was like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, it's fine. I'm like, oh my god. Like, but he was great. He was so down for anything. I think, well, doing the music video, I would say, was a major highlight for me, because it was one of the only parts of the movie that we really planned out in terms of, okay, like we want all these shots and we want all these locations, and we're going to do a wide shot and we're going to do like a close up, and this is where the dance sequences, it was kind of like, I would say that was definitely like the most time and effort we put into any part of the movie was the music video. And I think that, and it was really cool to see all of it come together. I was like, because I remember even when we were filming it, like you can see like in the camera, you're like, oh my God, that's going to be such a cool shot, and I felt really excited about that. But I think in terms of the most fun, I would say it was definitely the rap auditions.
Because we got to see you act too.
Because it was my first time ever acting, and I wasn't even, we had someone lined up, and then the day before they dropped out, and it was kind of just like, there wasn't even a question. It was just like, Ethan, you got to do it. And I was like, here we go. Like, but and I was so terrified. And then once I started doing it, I had so much fun. Like, I probably went for like an hour, just doing take after take, because I was just like in heaven. And I realized, I was like, oh my God, acting is so much fun, especially acting like as like a big character, who's like kind of crazy. Like, it's so cathartic. And I had so much fun that day. And it was fun because Suge stepped behind the camera and she was directing me. And, at that point we had been filming for like 2 weeks and I'd been directing her. And it was kind of cool to be on the other side of it. It gave me a lot of empathy for actors and like, how tricky it is, but it also kind of made me want to become one. So kind of a double-edged sword. So that was such a fun day, and just, I loved it. And getting to see the other rappers come, and like, we messed up so many takes just because we were laughing, because we're like, this movie's so ridiculous. And we were filming in this building that we were not given permission into, so we thought, oh my God, someone's gonna walk in at some moment and then see all of us and be like, what the actual is going on. And I was like, and I'm just like, at any moment I'm prepared to be like, hi, I'm the director, nice to meet you, but like at the same time doing this character that's like off the wall. So that was just like a totally fun day, and I had so much fun doing that. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome though. Mac, what else got it?
Just be like, what are all these kids doing here rapping? It's inconceivable. Like
it's not the first time that I think someone's had like a sort of like a rap off in Choctaw, but I think not at the community center. It was definitely a first for them, but yeah.
I have one of the things I want to ask is that was there any plans when you were making this film to maybe make it like a musical? Like, because I feel like there are hints of like, man, you just want to break out in song. It's kind of like a musical. You had any like plans for that?
I definitely had thought, we had thought about having Suge's character have like sing little bits and pieces, like she would kind of just make up songs on the spot, and just sing this and that here and there, and to kind of do it that way. But I think ultimately I wanted there to be a real separation between the movie and the music, because I wanted it to be like like you can see Suge's going through these like really high ups and downs, and I thought it would be kind of some of the comedy would come from the fact that she's having this like really emotional real experience, and she's singing about like better be a baller, like make it rain on your back tattoo, and like I was like, something about just the juxtaposition of that like made me laugh, and I was like, okay, like I think it'll be funnier if the music kind of almost doesn't match what she's going on like with her emotionally. And there are parts where it does, like when she sings at the bar and stuff, but I thought it would be funnier just in general if it was like the connection was so just like far apart. And I thought, someday I would love to make a real musical with Suge. One of my all-time favorite movies is Grease, and I someday, like 20 years from now, hopefully I'll get to make a movie like that, or like La La Land.
Yes.
I love La La Land too. I love it.
Yes, that's like my literal life is La La Land. So what other craziness happened on set? What was the wildest thing that you guys came up with on set that was totally last minute to film?
Well, so when we were doing the music video, we filmed the music video pretty much almost last. I think there was like 2 days of filming after it, but it was pretty much the last thing we did. And we had barely written anything. We really just had like a couple lines of action and like and sort of a character for the director to play. And we were like, oh my God, we're really gonna have to like come up with something. And I remember we were shopping at Walmart to get some like clothes like the day before, and we found this panda bear head. And
I love that panda bear head, which is great.
And we bought it, and we weren't even sure like what we were going to use it for. We were just like, it was like $25, like it was so cheap. And I was like, okay, we just have to get this. And then it was like the day after we were shooting the music video, and we're like, what should be like the conflict between her and this director? Because we had just written down like artistic differences in the script, and we're like, okay, well, how do we like bring that to light? And then literally like Suge looks over and like points to the panda head, and she's like, he has to have me wear that. And I was like, done. Like it was so simple after that. It was like, okay, obviously that was it. Crazy things that happened on set. The set was so small. I mean, it was really just me and like, Toby and Dawn and Suge. It was pretty chill. I think, oh man, I really have to think. We were a little bit nervous about filming at the church, I'll say, but it went so smoothly. I mean, everyone was just so accommodating, and I think that was one of the things I was not prepared for. I thought people were going to be more like, excuse me, like you are not doing that here. Like I thought you said you were going to do this kind of movie, like because we had told a lot of people in Choctaw that we didn't tell them we were shooting a mockumentary. We told them we were shooting a drama about a girl who wants to be a singer. because
Oh, okay.
just to like explain some of the like weirder things. I was like, it's a drama, and but they just really didn't question it. They were just kind of like went along with it. They're like, okay, cool, whatever you need to do.
Was the reaction with the Best Buy real? Because I feel like that would have been nuts. I was saying to myself, I was sitting there and I'm saying to myself, oh my gosh, is this real? Is this actually happening? Like the manager that comes up to Suge, I was like, wait, this has got to be real. There's this has to be some form of like a jackass or like, something kind of vibe that's going on here. Where it's like almost feels like a prank.
That was completely real. Still never. I still hope I hope he doesn't watch it. Because that was completely real. We just went into Best Buy and we were like, let's just have you start singing Bala and just see what happens. And I'm so busy trying to get all the reaction shots of people that I'm not really like focusing on her. And we did a take and a half of her singing it before he comes over, and and then he's like, but you know what? He was like, you can't perform here, but like I can give you a number of someone and they might be able to give you permission. He was actually very nice about it. And we had to cut, I feel bad because we cut that part out, but he was like, you have to leave. We can't have you just sing here. And it was so hard because we all wanted to laugh, but we were all like trying to, play it really serious. And we're like, oh, okay. Yeah. And we go outside and then none of the Best Buy employees came and checked on us. They just said you have to perform like 20 feet from the entrance, and then they never came and like looked. But a lot of people that were driving by would like stop and wave, and they thought it was like I think they maybe thought because of her outfit that she was like some kind of like prostitute or something. But we had a lot of people like stopping and waving that day, but then they would see me filming and I think they thought, okay, well, this is, I don't know, someone actually did come up and they thought we were doing a Best Buy commercial, which I thought was hilarious, that they thought that Best Buy's like budget for a commercial would be like this random girl singing a rap song outside of Best Buy and like having one guy film her like from across the parking lot. Like I laughed at that one. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I'll think if anything crazy comes to mind that happened. But we did film at an abandoned school, and
I did notice that for the music video.
I was a little scared about that because my friend said that there's sometimes people there, and we're just like walking through with like our camera equipment and like, just like, hello, anybody here? Okay, let's do this really quick. But it was cool. There was no one there. I mean, I think a couple people drove by, but no one came in and like joined the party.
Yeah.
Question anything.
Imagine somebody was just walking through your take. Just some like a homeless man in the background while Suge is pointing at the chalkboard or something.
Probably.
Mac, what did you want to say?
I was gonna say, who are your what films or filmmakers are? Because I know you mentioned the 280s films before. What are some of your 90s films? Who are like some filmmakers, or what are films that like have inspired you to fall in love with film? Because we all have that film or filmmakers that made us appreciate our cinema.
I mean, obviously, one of my all-time favorite movies is Mean Girls. I love it. I've probably seen it like 100, 200 times, and it never fails to make me laugh. And I think it really combines all different types of humor, physical humor, satire, like kind of blends them all together so perfectly. So that's of course like always a touchstone. Probably my favorite movie of all time. It's actually by Rob Reiner. He directed a movie called Stand By Me from the 80s.
Yes.
I love that one. Because I think both of those movies are about growing up. So any movie about just sort of how hard it is to grow up and how like confusing and painful that can be really, touches my heart. And I really, any movie or any director that I think can do that, I want to follow in their footsteps. I mean, I think Curtis Hanson, rest in peace, is someone that has done a lot of work over different genres, like, you know, thriller, comedy, drama, and I think he's done a really good job in all of them. So, and I would love to experiment with other genres as well. So he's definitely someone that I really admire. I mean, you know, David Fincher, come
Oh,
on,
he's a
like
legend.
legend. Like, to me, it's like I am a boy with a camcorder. Like, he is like a legend. You know, like I would not even like that's one of the things where it's like when you're calling yourself a director, and I'm like, I'm not a director. I'm just someone who's like fooling around. Like, that's a director because they
Yeah.
really killing it. And so of course I look up to those people, and those movies are great because, you know, you can just study them. I've probably seen Fight Club like 10 times. I got to see it in theaters like right before the pandemic, and it was
Oh,
just as amazing. Like the like eighth time that I'd seen it, I was like,
yeah.
it just gives you this like rush of adrenaline. And I feel like that's the power of movies. Like, movies are this incredible, you know, power. It's like the most powerful medium, I think. And, you know, to be able to be a part of it in any way, really, it would be like, you know, such an honor. And so hopefully, yeah, I'll get to work and learn from those people.
I can honestly see where you come from with the Stand By Me similarity, because I can also see it in the film as well. Because
Yeah, I was gonna
Suges,
say that.
trying to find herself and trying to find her voice in this film, and make it for herself, and trying to grow up in a dream she wants to achieve. So I can easily see that where you could draw some inspiration from that. So this isn't your first, though, like full film. Your first film, I did some research, and you directed a documentary called My True Gender. So what was it like from going from documentary into a mockumentary?
Oh my God. I thought it was going to be the easiest transition because I was like doing the documentary. I filmed this woman named Jessica Lynn. She's a transgender activist, and I'd filmed her for probably like 3 to 4 months. And I would just kind of follow her around and ask her a question when I felt like it. And I kind of thought, oh, well, doing a mockumentary will be pretty much the same, not realizing that doing a mockumentary is not at all the same, because you're just trying to, instead of following reality and just trying to capture reality, you're actually trying to create reality.
Right.
And that was, I think, the biggest, like, oh wow, this is not the same. Like, probably like day 2 of filming, where I was like, okay, Ethan, like, every little thing you have to like look out for. And I would say it was, oh my God, way harder. And I think keeping, the hardest part of directing is just communicating with the actors and making sure they understand like exactly how they're supposed to feel in the scene, because everyone came in like knowing their lines or knowing sort of like how to improv really well. But it was like, well, in this scene, like, you're anxious, but you're also excited, and so you're trying to sort of communicate these sort of, I would say, a little bit more like vague emotions, because there's a lot of times in the movie where Suge is disappointed or where Dawn is nervous, so it was about like playing that at different levels,
Yeah.
And that was, I think, it was just hard because I hadn't really ever directed before, except for a couple of short films, which were like much more over the top. So directing something in a subtle way you really have to be watching closely. And I was like, okay, this is a little harder.
Now, because I was going to watch My True Gender, is that available on Amazon Prime? I meant to ask you.
Oh, it's on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I would say it was. I'm proud of it. I made it when I was 21, so it's a little bit, very rough. I think it's even rougher than Hit Record is, in terms of like the camera quality and like the way that it's made and everything. But I think Jessica has an incredibly powerful story, and I followed her around for so long, and it never failed to move me. And so, she's someone that I really look up to just in life. And yeah, so definitely worth watching.
I would just have a few other questions, and revolving around, I guess, what I have to be more about the film. How did Suges Fathers come into play with all this? Was that your own father or somebody else that you wanted to cast? And why did you want Suge to come from a very Catholic background and her transitioning? Because essentially, when I was sitting there, I was thinking to myself, she reminds me of the Katy Perry aspirations, where she came from a very Catholic family and going straight into this pop genre, where her father doesn't approve.
That's a very astute observation. Yeah, I think both Katy Perry and Jessica Simpson, they both came from having pastor fathers, or like were very involved in their church. And I think it's interesting because so many singers come from, a church background and then kind of move into pop music, which usually is really, a lot of times it's like very, hypersexual or like just kind of explicit in any way. And I thought, I was like, okay, well, that seems like to me like the most area of conflict. I can't imagine what it would be like to be a fly on the wall in like Katy Perry's house when she's telling her parents, I'm going to make this song called They Kissed a Girl, but it's no big deal, like just sort of like the comedy of that, of someone sort of being like, okay, well, I know I was like this and I still am, I still like believe in God and everything, but hear me out,
Yeah.
And I thought there was definitely some like juicy comedic material there. And then I think also, we, in terms of the father character being like my dad, there are some huge similarities because I think, my dad always expected for me and Suge to go, work and to do other kinds of things. Focus on a job that was like maybe a little bit more academic or something like more that he was, his dad was an engineer, my dad's a doctor, and so I think they're very like into the idea of like, well, go to as much school as you can, and that's the answer, and I think my feeling is like, oh, well, like I'm an artist, and I have this like just this passion to want to do something that's like a little more off the beaten path, and I know it's going to be hard, but I still want to do it, and it takes parents a long time to come around to that. If I had just, I'd been making shorts for years, so they knew that I had an interest in film, but so they were pretty warmed up to the idea when I said I'm going to be a filmmaker, and especially when I said I'm going to make this movie. It was kind of like saying I'm going to be a pop star, because it's a very like lofty goal, that you don't know if you're going to be able to actually like finish it or achieve it or what's going to happen after. And I think my parents were like, sure, go for it. Like I think they were kind of like, let's just see how this shakes out. And I think, so obviously we made the dad a little bit more controlling and, the way that he is. But I think it's a struggle all people have with their parents, is their parents kind of have this vision for who they are and what they're going to be like. And, we have to, I feel like when you really grow up is when you say, hey, I'm going to do this different thing. And I know you don't understand it. You may not understand it, but I think it's what's best for me. And so I think it's in that way, I really see it as like a coming of age movie for Suge.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So did you cast the father for Suge, or was that your own father? That's what I also wanted to know.
No, that's not my dad. My dad, I wouldn't trust him to act for a second, but his name is Paul, and I put out, I didn't even have like an official casting thing when I was in Oklahoma. I just put out an ad on Craigslist, and I said, I'm looking for actors of all ages, and, just please reach out if you have any interest in being part of like a low budget independent film. And he reached out. I sent him an unfinished version of the script. He said he liked it and that he was down. And I think that at that point I was like, oh my God, I was so nervous that sending him the script would be like a no-go, but he was like, he had a little experience in the music business. I think he said he'd acted in a couple things before then. And he was like, I'm ready. Like, just tell me where and when to be. And I was like, yes. And that was a huge win for us, because a lot of people were kind of like more shifty, and we didn't really send the script out to many people because we wanted to keep it sort of like under lock and key. So we would just send them like a 2-page PDF of their scene, and they wouldn't really know what came before or after. And we sent him the whole script, and he was still on board. So that was a good sign.
That's awesome. So how long did it take you guys to like put the whole script together? I think you mentioned it from like January to June or July, I believe, from what you mentioned. How long was the original script, and what did you have to cut out in order to make the film? Like, what was one scene that you wanted to include in the film but could not?
I think that there was the original script was probably like 52 pages, maybe 53. Okay. And the last 3 pages of it were just like, this happens, and then this happens, and this, it was like, we didn't really have, because the whole music video sequence, none of that is scripted. It was all improv, or just like directed improv. And so weren't working off a ton of pages, but I think I had written a lot of like little interview nuggets I thought were funny, like just sort of like, oh, we have the producer at the studio. We have a funny interview with him, but it was like, I think it was just sort of, we were trying to get to the point of like her singing, and I was like, oh, I don't want to like, one thing you realize is you have to keep the pace up, or like do enough of a job to keep the pace somewhat up. And all these interviews were starting to kind of like drag it a little bit. We wanted, we always had a fantasy. We never like filmed it, but we wanted to do a scene after the music video where Toby, Dawn, and Suge all just got wasted. And then we didn't end up filming it because we were so tired at the end, and I think we all just wanted to do that and not film it. And that was kind of what happened in reality. But, looking back, we're all like, oh, we should have filmed that night of like finally finishing, because it would have been like epic. But then it also could have made it a little weird, maybe, because it's like you're trying to celebrate finishing a movie, but you're still filming it. So, I think there was that. And yeah, what was the other question?
Just you actually answered both of them, so so you're good.
Perfect.
So
I'll say I do have a question. I just thought about it now. I remember it. Do you plan on taking, maybe, I know you said you're moving on to other projects, but is there anything like maybe in the back of your mind that you maybe want to hit record to like the independent circuit, see where it can gain some traction in like maybe some independent film festivals?
Yeah, well, we actually did just get into our first film festival last month. The Lonely, yay! My first ever film festival I've been in, the Lonely Wolf Film Festival in the UK. It was virtual,
fun.
So who knows, how many people got to watch the movie, but just the fact that it was accepted, and that was a huge boost to my ego, I'll say.
Yeah.
And we're waiting to hear back from a few, like 2 more, and we'll kind of see from there. But you know what? I kind of have this theory that it's kind of more cool if it's kind of just like a word of mouth, like underground thing, like, because I'm like, what, like just sort of someone's like, I saw this weird movie, I need you to watch it just because I need someone to talk with it about, or something. Like, I kind of just imagine it would be more like that than someone being like, this movie won an award and that's why it's good. Like we actually never really planned on doing festivals, but I had Suge kind of talked me into, she's like, let's just apply to a few and just see what happens, so I'm like, okay, I did a few applications. It's like $200, so we'll see what happens, but I'm more expecting it to just be like friends in Oklahoma telling friends, and then they tell friends, kind of that way.
You never know what you could expect to see at a film festival, so I'm sure submitting it was the best decision, because you don't know who could turn it up and actually, say, you got to go check this movie out. You never know who sees it.
True.
So my last question for you is, what do you have planned next for, you, and do you have any more projects in the work with your sister?
Oh my goodness, so many more projects in the works. Suge actually wrote this really great script. It's like comedy. It's a coming of age comedy about a girl who travels to Europe, and it would be obviously much more budget, because going to Europe, but that it's really funny, and we're working on one right now that's kind of like a comedy drama. I can't say anything more about it. But we're always working on stuff. I wrote this movie about my experience of growing up and being a high schooler in Oklahoma, and like the ups and downs of that. and I would love to make that in Oklahoma someday. I think that would be probably my biggest dream, is to do another movie in Oklahoma that even more so shares like my direct experience and the highs and lows of that, and getting to show even more of Oklahoma, because there are different parts to it beyond Choctaw, and I think it's a beautiful place, and I just think that like there's so many little pockets in America that people just don't really know much about. I mean, I don't know that much about, most movies are in New York or LA, so you just kind of, you don't think too much. But
Yeah,
always working on tons of stuff.
But that's great. So I'm going to just wrap it up from here and say congratulations. You worked, everyone on the crew, the small crew that you had was fantastic from beginning to end. I really enjoyed it. Guys, go check out Hit Record, available on Amazon Prime. Thank you so much, Ethan. All right, Mac, let's wrap this up. Anything else?
Where can they find folks that are listening on the good old YouTube sphere? Where can they find you, Ethan?
They can find me on Instagram and on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel that I make videos on. So just look up Ethan Cvitanic.
Yeah. What do you do on your YouTube? Do you do what do you do? So, cause.
Well, I thought about doing a movie review thing, but there are so many people that do that, and I'm not as eloquent. I would just be like, I love this movie. So I've started making videos about sort of environmental issues and things that I'm really passionate about, and they're really short and sometimes funny. So if you want to check them out, just look up Ethan Cvitanic.
Okay, well, we'll look it up and we'll subscribe to your channel then. So guys, go check Ethan out. That's it from us. Mac, take us home.
Yep. So links will be in the description for everyone's social media. We want to thank Ethan for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you here. It was awesome. Very good guest, man. Just thank you, and congratulations on the film, and we wish you luck on all your future projects and everything.
And please come back to our show.
Come back. You're always welcome.
When you have a new project, a new film, please come back. Even if you want to review a film.
Oh, I would love to do that sometime. Okay.
Yeah, so, alrighties.
But
that's been it then.
Now, yep. I've been Mac, and this has been Kristin, and this has been Ethan, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Later.
Later.